Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for your patience for lasting throughout the day. It should be a fairly quick presentation. Just want to tell you a little bit about our company and the value proposition. So we are a Toronto-based clean tech firm, actually affiliated with Mars, one of the venture growth companies here, and investment from the Mars Investment Accelerator Fund. We've started in Toronto, but we have offices now in New York and Boston as well. Our team brings together expertise in buildings, energy, and software. We're backed by Osmington Inc., which is the family office of David Thomson, chairman of Thomson Reuters, and we've recently signed a partnership agreement with Google Sidewalk Labs, which is doing a very large smart cities project here in Toronto, and has tapped us to help work on transactive energy platforms with them. So our focus really is on the software and the analytics that can be used to optimize different distributed energy resources, such as energy storage. So I like to start all of my presentations with a metaphor, actually, to help really understand how we add value. The electricity grid, every generator, every pole, every wire, everything that you see that brings electricity to you is sized for moments of peak demand. That's the hottest days of the summer, plus 15%. Because they have to have that capacity available. But if you think about it, it's a very inefficient system. It would be equivalent to building highways for Thanksgiving rush hour traffic and having them sit empty most of the time. Obviously, that would be overly expensive. No one would warrant such a system. But we've grown accustomed to sitting in traffic, at least here in Toronto, for traffic jams. But no one would accept having your power go out for an hour a day. So the utilities understand this, and they structure their bills accordingly. So for Class A customers, and any mine in Ontario is undoubtedly a Class A customer, the bill is broken down into different components. Some of you may be acutely aware of this. For some of you, it may be a little bit of a different take on it. But there's three components. A kilowatt hour component, which we're all familiar with from residential bills. They're billed this way, how much energy you use. And there's two components based off of peak kilowatt, instantaneous kilowatt consumption. So one is your 15 minutes per month when the facility is at its peak for the month, and one is based off of the global adjustment, which is 5 hours of the year when all of Ontario is at its most constrained, and they bill you based off of your contribution. So they look at how much energy you are using during those 5 hours. The amazing thing is, what this means is that 8 hours of the year can represent 75% of your bill. And for you mines that have multi-million-dollar bills, imagine that if you could pinpoint exactly those hours, you could continue your regular operations and drastically reduce your bills just by focusing on a few key hours of the year. So this is where we come in and where we've developed a software that optimizes this. Sorry, I'll give one more slide on the context. Focusing on energy storage, the basic premise is charge at night when there's no constraints and discharge during the day to reduce peaks. This is a fairly basic slide, but I want to put a spin on it. Imagine you're the utility or the IESO, and your job is to supply constant, uninterruptible power. Obviously, the system on the right is a preferable setup. You would rather set the knob once and forget it throughout the day and have a flat balance of supply and demand. If you had to supply to the situation on the left, you have to ramp up and ramp down and try and anticipate what the grid is doing. So this kind of shows why the utilities and the IESO like technologies like energy storage, and very similar to the last presentation. This is a schematic of how we would attach energy storage to a facility. Here we're looking at a commercial building, but a mine is no different. You typically have one major meter. You connect behind the meter with as many batteries as you can fit in the space. And during these key moments, we would discharge the batteries, which would not affect the mine operations in any way. The mine would still operate as normal, but the meter would read lower. And so from the perspective of the utility, you're using less electricity at this moment. I want to just make it very clear, our company is primarily a software company, and our value is in the peak prediction services, where we can provide a 2-hour window, a very accurate window of when this 1-hour peak is going to occur. So in some cases, it makes sense to install these batteries. In some cases, we've actually worked just as a notification service where we can notify large energy users that a peak is coming up. Now, that is very much dependent on the facility's own operations. In some cases, it takes 6 hours or 8 hours to shut down, another 8 hours to start up. If that's the case, you don't need a small window. You just need to know what day it's going to occur. But in situations where you can stop operations very quickly, or at least certain specific operations very quickly, and ramp back up very quickly, then it pays to have very accurate forecasting of when these global adjustment peaks are going to occur. A little bit about our software. We can operate individual energy storage systems or multiple energy storage systems in aggregate, which allows us to provide more services to the grid. On the right-hand side, provide benefits to our customers, mainly in reduced energy use, but there's also an environmental benefit in Ontario, because at night when we charge the batteries, Ontario's electricity comes from hydro and nuclear, which is emission-free. But when we discharge during the afternoon, we're displacing natural gas and peak electricity. I mentioned why the utilities like it. They can defer infrastructure investments. They can integrate more renewables into the grid. You guys have all heard the major complaint with renewables is it's intermittent. You don't know when the sun is shining or when the wind blows. If you pair it with a battery, again, you can balance supply and demand. The middle portion of the slide is the one that I think is the most interesting from our perspective. The truth is no one knows where the electricity industry is going. There are talks of changing the global adjustment mechanism. There are different trends that are happening because of these changes in technologies. We've actually designed our software to be scalable and adaptable, meaning that it's very simple for us to change the modules, that each module basically looks at a different revenue stream, demand response, global adjustment, peak shaving, and we can plug and play these in our central optimizer. So as the grid changes and as the tariff structures change, we can change our software as well. The other element that's key here is that we operate using historical and real-time data. So during these global adjustment peak events, we have a control room with 12 monitors on the wall, and we've got trained staff that are watching all of Ontario use energy in real time and making real-time decisions about when these peaks are going to occur. So that's how we get very accurate forecasting in the moment. So again, if you need this information the day before, it may not be the best solution for you, but if you can operate very quickly and change your operations very quickly, then we have a wonderful solution. And with batteries, they can operate on a microsecond's notice. You press a button and they're in operation. This is a visualization of our software's performance. So it's not very dramatic here, but the purple line represents all of Ontario's energy use. This is at the end of the day, a snapshot, but typically we pull it in real time. So every 5 minutes we get an update. The arrows are mathematical vectors that show when energy use is going up, as the green lines. These are looking at hundreds of different factors, but we've filtered it down into one number. And then the purple line is, the purple arrow down is when it changes direction. So what this is really showing us is that 9 in the morning, we predicted that at 1 in the afternoon, there would be a peak event. And in terms of our accuracy, over the last 2 years, we've had a 95% accuracy. So we feel very, very successful. And again, the key here is in the window. We're using a 2-hour window to predict these peaks. There are many different peak forecasting services. Most of them give a much larger window. If they give a 6-hour window, then it's obviously much easier to predict when that peak is going to occur. Just a little bit on some of our successes to date. We have 4 projects in operation right now. 3 of them are in the GTA. One is in New York. It's actually the largest battery system in Con Edison territory. And we have a large pipeline of future projects. We recently signed with a large food and beverage company that has 7 different facilities across Ontario. So certainly scaling up our operations and interested in and looking forward to working on larger projects. This is the last slide, just a little bit about the services. Again, we are quite happy to just provide software services, but we also offer a full turnkey solution where we do the permitting, we do the installation, we take all the risk. Again, there's a political risk and a forecasting risk with the global adjustment. Maybe you don't want to manage any of that. We're quite happy to take that risk ourselves because of our knowledge of the industry and our confidence in the system. So we provide a no-cost solution. We will actually pay for the batteries, we will take all the risk, we will install it, and in turn we get a share of the savings. All of that can be negotiated if you guys have capital to deploy on it, then certainly we can manage that. You guys can own the batteries, you get a larger share of the savings. But if you're interested in a no-cost, no-risk solution, then we have an option for that as well. Okay, thank you very much, and really appreciate you all staying till the end. Happy to take questions.